And that's pretty much it for the entire game. Again, this might not seem too bad, it wasn't for me either at the beginning, but remember this goes on for 4 games, all of which are decent in length being RPGs. I found myself the type of person who finds it easier to do grinding tasks in RPGs, because I've played plenty of them to be sure, but even I get tired of this same repetitive circle of events by the 3rd or 4th game. If I'm going to say anything nice about it, I did think the combat system was pretty good. It's easy to use, equipping different items or weapons will give you different attacks. The enemies appear through chaos gates, so if you wanted to, you could avoid combat, so none of that random battle bullshit that a lot of people hate. The battles are semi-active time. What I mean by that is if you open the menu, the battle stops so you can choose which attacks or items you want to use, so it gives you plenty of time to think about it. I also like the boss battles. They themselves were pretty cool, and some of the best graphics outside the cutscenes, but I guess that's not saying too much. However, despite the flaws this game has, the saving factor is the storyline. Without a doubt, this is the best part about it, and the reason I kept playing those repetitive quests. This is the plot where everything so far comes together, makes sense, and expands on what we already know to give us a good story-based RPG. It does a good job revealing the mystery of the comas at a good rate, keeping some plot twists behind the scenes. And keeping with the positives, the story has a great cast of characters. As the game goes along, Kart encounters other players who later become his allies. Like Hack-san, they become more than two-dimensional characters, and they actually have some semblance of a personality or attitude. You usually interact with other players through doing mini-quests which play out like anything else in this game, which reveals more about their lifestyle and so on. They can also send you emails which reveals more information. And it's all these little features that make them likeable characters, and, I found myself getting attached to some of them. To wrap this up, the game itself is a bit tacky, but the story is a winner, which I'd really like to see one day finally turned into an anime. Buying it totally depends on your game preference, so 3.5 out of 5. It's only been saved by the story. And before we move any further down the timeline, there are a few titles which take place at the exact same time as .hack's story. One of them is included with the game itself. With each part of the game, you are also given a DVD. When combined with the other 3, create a short OVA series called .hack Limality, if I've said that right. The series follows a group of students and a former CC Corporation director who investigate the cause of several people going into comas. While it's only 4 episodes short, the unique angle is that most of the story takes place in the real world, who tackle the problem head on, by confronting the CC Corporation itself. Also, for anyone who's into this kind of thing, it's been distributed with the original voice cast with subtitles over it. For being in the real world, there's actually a lot more action than a few of the other titles, as the group do a bit of solid snake action. While their actions might not seem important, they still play a role which Kart and his allies would appreciate. What that is, I'll let you find out. Bottom line, considering length, not bad, and a big change from other titles in the series. 3 out of 5. The next title is Another Birth. This novel is a 4-part story which, just like the game, tells the events of the .hack story, but this time they are told from the perspective of Akari Hayama, aka Kart's partner Black Rose. Personally, this is my favourite title so far. The title takes out the story of the .hacks games and gets rid of that gameplay bullshit which was its main problem, but even better, it gives a detailed and interesting account of Black Rose's personal life at home, school, and her feelings as her adventures begin to get more serious. The story is pretty much half game, half reality, so even if you've played the games or know about the plot, there's still something new to read, and if you don't want to pay for the games, this makes a good and cheaper alternative. I give this 4.5 out of 5, and recommend it to any .hack fan. Finally, the last title to happen at this point in the timeline is the small manga called .hack XXXX, which when I first heard the title sounded like some perverted hentai creation, but luckily that's not the case. This is a non-canon title which tells the story of the .hack games but in manga form. The difference of this one is the title was altered slightly, the biggest difference being the use of a character called Cubia. When I first heard this being released, I got my hopes up thinking we'd finally have a manga version of the game, but while the non-canon bit isn't much of a problem, it's only 2 volumes long, and you can't fit the entire story well in such a small space, which is a shame because the artwork was pretty good. Honestly, it's not terrible, but they could have done better with it. I'd give it 3 out of 5. A short read, but a good one, and a cheap one at that. Moving along, the final chapter of the first generation is another manga called Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight. This takes place 4 years after the Dot Hack games, where 14-year-old twins Shugo and Rena have won a contest which allows them to play as the avatars of the now legendary players Cat and Black Rose. Before the two can even begin playing properly, they are attacked by a monster which is too strong for them to handle. Shugo is saved by a mysterious girl, who gives him a bracelet. Gee, this is sounding awfully familiar. They decide to try and find her again, and while making new friends, they come across another AI claiming to be the first girl's daughter, and becomes very attached to Shugo, and they think it all the more reason to find the mother. Legend is a more, how should I say, laid back title. Probably because the danger of the main plot is over, there's not much threat towards our heroes, so instead its story has a more of a focus on creating a laugh from its chapters. Many of the adventures are simply one joke after another, and in anime typical fashion, with outright randomness and mixed in with that good old fashioned teaching of friendship and compassion. The art style goes along with this as well. The characters are a lot more cute and chibi, could I even say? Actually, when talking or referring to Shugo and Rena, most fans call them the chibi version of Cat and Black Rose. They certainly look that way in some cases. Again, the characters are done pretty good here. The most focus is on the twins, but you still get a good feel for their friends. While we're on the subject of characters, this story has a host of cameos from previous characters in the first generation, which you don't really realise until you've seen most of the first generation's timeline. Because this was the last one of their series, there was also a special thank you to the readers from the creators, with all the major characters in different drawn panels mixed in with each other. While it's not an epic story, it wasn't trying to be. It's cute, funny, and I think a good way to end the series. 4 out of 5. The manga actually had an anime adaptation of the same name, which was non-canon to the series. While the beginning was the same, later on Rena falls into a coma, and it was up to Shugo to save her. I'm a bit disappointed at this, because this seems a bit more bland from its original view, so I think a bit of the charm was sucked out during the change. Nothing really else to say, but a decent title nonetheless. 2.5 out of 5. And that concludes Generation 1. Obviously, the creators realised the potential they had with the series, and, either because they had more ideas, or more likely just wanted to make more money, Project GU was made, and created the second generation. Oh, I see we're looking at Dot Hack Roots first. What can I say about this anime? I hate this fucking anime! Well, that's the short review version of it anyway. I better explain a few things so you understand. Dot Hack Roots is the second generation's equivalent to Dot Hack San, which basically sets up the story for the games to come. In the year 2015, the CC Corporation building was burned down in an accident, thereby destroying the original The World. Using fragments left over of the original, they were able to create a new version called The World R2. One of the changes made in the upgrade was the creation of guilds and P vs P playability, which players have taken on board very happily, as players begin to kill each other or new players for easy experience, also labelled PKers. One of these players victimised is Hiseo, our new main character, who is pretty different from Kat in the first generation, as he gets PK'd the first time he logs in. He's helped by a player called Orvon, who hinted he has potential, and would like him to join the Twilight Brigade, a guild looking for the legendary item Key of the Twilight. At the same time, they are being monitored by the powerful and influential guild Tan, led by a player named Niobe, who's fixated with Orvon. That's what the first summary gives an impression of, but to really give my thoughts on the series, I'll have to explain a bit more, because the series can't seem to make up its mind on what the series is about. It starts well, finding clues about the key, they gain a lead, only to find out it's a trap set by Tan who kidnap Orvon. The Twilight Brigade beginning to break up, and so then you get the feeling they're going to search for Orvon, but then